Hi, I'm Donna and I'm a patent attorney at Rays. Today I'm joined by Professor Phil Hansbro from the Centenary Institute, a world-leading independent medical research institute in Sydney. Phil leads a team of scientists studying respiratory diseases such as emphysema, asthma and lung cancer. Phil has received several awards for his outstanding contribution to the advancement of knowledge in respiratory medicine and science. In the past few months, Phil and his team have pivoted their respiratory disease research to focus on COVID-19 with the hope of unlocking the mechanisms of this virus. And Rays have asked him to join us today to tell us all a little bit about the COVID-19 global pandemic and the research that his lab is conducting into this novel coronavirus. Okay, so hi Phil, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. Firstly, I guess the first question I'd like to ask is, how is COVID-19 different from other respiratory diseases that we know about?
Okay, well, thanks, Donna. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks for your interest in this area as well. So, COVID-19 is it's different because every virus infection is different, really, from each other. They're all unique. They all infect in different ways, and they all have different effects as well. So, each one has a characteristic way it infects and a characteristic disease course that it induces. So this particular one, this coronavirus, it binds to a specific receptor. It's called the ACE2 receptor. And it has a particular protein in that virus that binds specifically to that receptor. Then some cellular things need to happen for the cells to bring the virus inside the cell. And then it uses the host cell biology to make more virus particles. And then the virus grows and grows and grows, and it escapes from that cell and infects other cells. Now that's all okay, and at the moment, at that point in the disease, it's still not really causing symptoms. What it does then, it induces an immune response to the virus. And that immune response, hopefully, and in most people, it effectively clears the virus. But in some people, and the ones that you know that go on to get severe disease, that doesn't happen. And so you get this increased and ongoing immune response that induces inflammation, and that just grows and grows and grows. And as well as trying to kill the virus, it damages your host, your own cells and tissues as well. It damages the lung, and that's what causes the severe lung disease in COVID-19.
Okay, great, thanks. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about your team and the research that you're currently doing, specifically with the COVID-19.
Yeah, so I'm trained as a microbiologist, and we do a lot of work. We've done a lot of work on bacteria and viruses. I'm also a respiratory researcher, so we also look at other respiratory diseases as well. So asthma, emphysema, those kind of things. And what's notable is that people with asthma and emphysema, they are more susceptible to respiratory infections. And we've done a lot of work on influenza that's kind of similar to coronavirus. And so we're applying our skills, hopefully that we're an expertise, into studying the coronavirus, and with the intent to try and develop new treatments for it. So there's several ways that we can address this virus and the infections. We can try and develop a vaccine. We can try and develop antivirals, or we can try and develop treatments that suppress that inflammation that really causes the disease. And so what we're focusing on is developing new treatments for the inflammation. Now, we have some real advantages where we are. This is a highly infectious virus. And so in order to work with it, we need a high containment laboratory. And so we have one of those at our institute that enables us to work with the virus and infect cells and mice with it. And so we can then, if we can do that, then we can start to learn more about how the virus causes the disease and inflammation. And most importantly, we can try and test treatments in those cells and mice. And we can do that quite rapidly and under highly controlled conditions. So then we can do direct comparisons between different treatments to find out which ones we think are the best. And also, bearing in mind our other research that we do, the virus and COVID-19 occurs in much more in people who've got chronic disease, including those ones that we work on. And so we can then use cells or animals with those diseases to see how those diseases make the COVID-19 more severe.
Have you done research in relation to other outbreaks similar to COVID-19 as well?
Yeah, so we started doing some work on the bird flu outbreak that was in 2005. We did a lot of, we've done a lot of actually wild bird sampling. So every outbreak that there is has its own characteristics. So that was a bird flu virus, and the danger there was that wild birds are going to bring it into the country and spread it around the community. So then the obvious thing to look at there is what happens in birds, what viruses are they carrying, and can they infect human cells? And so we found loads of influenza viruses in birds, but we found all the ones that we found were low pathogenic, they didn't cause disease, and we actually discovered a whole new lineage of bird flu viruses that are circulating in the wild birds around Australia. But they don't cause disease, so nobody's ever studied them. So that was something that we did with bird flu. That was even more pathogenic. So we actually did some work there in the highest level containment there is. So that was a PC4, high level containment. There's only one of those labs in Australia. It's in Geelong, and so we did some work on how that virus infects human respiratory epithelial cells, so human cells of the airways. And we found that what it does is it reduces our natural antiviral defenses. And when it does that, it can cause a greater infection. And once you get a greater infection, then that induces this extreme inflammatory response again that damages our lungs. So we were able to work that out.
Okay, that's great. So if the bird flu is more pathogenic than COVID-19, why is COVID-19 a much larger global problem?
So there's two important things with a virus that has potential pandemic properties. One is that it causes a severe disease, and the other is that it induces it's capable of human to human transmission. So the virus, it's called SARS-CoV-2 that causes COVID-19. That coronavirus is capable of human to human transmission. The bird flu virus, it was a lot more severe. It killed 50% of people it infected, but it could not undergo human to human transmission.
Okay, that's interesting. So why is it then that young, healthy people, particularly children, seem to only be experiencing milder symptoms? Are you able to speculate on the mechanism behind
that? Yes. Yes and no. So yes, because a lot of it is to do with the virus and being able to control the receptor and being able to control the infection. So the more of the receptor you have, then the more the virus can bind and the more susceptible you become. So in normal healthy people, and particularly young people, you don't have much of this receptor. You've got a very strong immune response, and so you're able to clear the virus. So it's not a problem. So, but over the last couple of days, where people in the UK are now seeing more and more kids being infected. It's still quite rare, and they get a different infection. It's more gastrointestinal infections and causes more gastrointestinal disturbances than a respiratory tract infection. And that's very new. That's only the last couple of days. So we're still not sure what's happening there.
Do you think the virus is mutating?
I don't know, but undoubtedly it will be. And this is what happens all the time with these viruses. So we think this is a brand new pandemic. This is a big thing. It's the big thing since Spanish flu. What we tend to forget is that there's an outbreak and with potentially pandemic potential once every 18 months. It happens all the time. People have forgotten about the MERS, which was the Middle Eastern respiratory symptoms. The first SARS virus, because they weren't capable of human to human transmission, they killed 400 or 500 people, and then it died out because the virus mutates so that it becomes less and less pathogenic, and less disease causing. And this is usually what happens, that when these things emerge, they're often highly pathogenic, but it's not in the virus's best interests to kill the person that it's growing in. If it kills the person it's growing in, then it's dead itself. So natural selection makes it so that the virus becomes less severe, it causes less severe disease, but it's still able to replicate in the person and infect other people. So usually what happens is they self-reduce as it progresses.
Well, shifting gears slightly, some recent preliminary research indicated that air quality might be an important contributor to COVID-19 mortality. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, and we're getting conflicting information about this all the time as well. So I have seen maps of where a lot of the outbreaks of COVID-19 have occurred, and it does map quite strongly with some areas of air pollution, which would indicate there's a link there between air pollution and the virus. There is some evidence that that pollution and cigarette smoke increase the expression of the receptor, the ACE2 receptor, that will increase the infection. And there's some evidence that people with emphysema get these infections as well. But there's other studies have shown that people who smoke are less likely to get the inflammatory response to the virus. So we still don't know what's happening there.
Sounds like it's too early to tell. What about reinfection? Is it possible to be reinfected with COVID-19 if you've already had it?
That's a very good question as well. And that's changed also in the last 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. So there was a strong potential and a strong concept for a long time that once you got the infection, then that would cause you to generate an immune response to the virus. And often what happens when you get such an infection is that your immune response becomes trained and it becomes able to specifically recognize each individual infection, so it can respond to it a lot more rapidly and clear it a lot more quickly than it can if it's never seen that infection before. So it was thought a lot of that was going to happen, and this concept of herd immunity as well, which some places like the UK and Sweden, they backed that early. Sweden is still going with that. The UK have really backtracked on that. Mm-hmm. And recent evidence just over the last 2 or 3 days has suggested that it doesn't necessarily induce a protective immune response. Now, this is going to be quite specific to different people. So different people are going to respond in different ways. Yeah. So personally, I think that some people it is going to induce a protective immune response, and some people it won't.
And so it might not be wise to rely on the herd immunity theory.
No, that's right. That's right. And that's going to make making a vaccine a lot more difficult as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that we are able to produce a vaccine in a reasonable time? And if we do, I mean, do you think that we will need an annual vaccine similar to the flu, or will it be a once-off?
Okay. So I'm not sure. So when you see the news and everything, they're confident there's going to be a vaccine in 18 months. Mm-hmm. There has never been a vaccine against a coronavirus that's been successful.
Interesting.
There's been 5 pandemic coronaviruses. There will undoubtedly be more, but there's never been a successful vaccine produced. Now, this is different though this time, because the outbreaks that we've had of coronaviruses before, they've kind of died out before a vaccine was produced, whereas this is a lot greater, and so there's a lot more impetus to make a vaccine against coronaviruses. So coronaviruses are also one of the causes of the common cold. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been put into trying to develop a common cold vaccine, and that's never happened either. So there is a lot of effort going in. I hope they can make a vaccine. There has been a vaccine produced that is already going into people in Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to wait and see what will happen and how we can improve, how we can make different, more effective and improve vaccines as we go forward. I think we'll be able to make a vaccine against anything. It's just how much time and effort and money are people prepared to put into it.
Yeah. So I guess if I were to read into what you're saying, you think that COVID-19 is going to be here with us for a while?
That's a difficult one. I think it will be. I think it will be. It will become less severe. And so what happens with flu now, and that's embedded in the community. And what happens with the influenza is it mutates rapidly. So every year the flu is different. And so that's why every year we have to make a new vaccine. I think that will likely be the case for COVID-19, for the coronavirus as well. But it depends how quickly it mutates. And as I said before, every virus is different. So I think probably it will be around at least for a few seasons, and hopefully we can make a vaccine to it.
Oh, well, good luck to you and your researchers. I mean, on that point, what's needed to develop new treatment? Like, what do we need to do?
So what we need to develop new treatments is, it's all about funding. So we have lots. Everybody has lots and lots of ideas. Some of them will work, and eventually we will be able to find a treatment, and we'll be able to find a vaccine. And how long that takes depends how much money is available, and the more money that's available early, then the sooner we'll be able to develop vaccines and treatments for this disease.
And where does funding normally come from?
Well, from normally, without a pandemic, there's a process where it comes from, a lot of it comes from the government, but we have to think about where the opportunities are here. So normally funding comes from the National Health and Medical Research Council. That is the major source, but we have to think that they provide nearly $900 million a year, but that is less than 1/10 of the annual profits of the Commonwealth Bank. So that tells you how much importance as a community we put in medical research, and then we wonder why there's a pandemic. So it has increased it has doubled with the Medical Research Future Fund. So there is more funding available, and they have made some available for COVID-19 research, but it's like $8 million. That's a drop in the ocean. Although the New South Wales government have just put some forward as well. I think industry has a huge part to play in it. Although, that's very focused on, well, not very focused, but that's quite focused on things that can be commercially translated as well. So we have to take that into account. But I think we are, at this point in time, we all have to pull together to try and work together to develop a new vaccine and treatments for this virus.
Okay, we'll leave it there today. And thank you so much for talking to us. And we do look forward to getting future updates from you about the research project progress from your team. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks very much.